Here.
Stricker?
Here.
McCarrigan?
Here.
Solomon?
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For public information, a copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is available for review. Notice of changes in the agenda by the city clerk. Additions may not be made to this agenda less than 24 hours before the beginning of the meeting unless added under item 5 of this agenda. Any changes?
No changes.
Citizens with business not scheduled on the agenda as required by state law, no matter may be considered under this item unless council determines that the matter requires emergency action. Do you have any emergency action? Okay. Closed session. Council reserves the right to enter into closed session if deemed necessary if the item is on the agenda as per section 84-1410 of the Nebraska Revised Statutes. Public comments. The purpose of this agenda item is to allow for public comment of items for potential discussion at a future council meeting. Comments brought to the council are for information only. The council will not take any action on the item except for referring it to the staff to address for placement on a future council agenda. This comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Do we have public comments?
One quick question about that. Is it normally 5 minutes, or is it just 3 minutes we're gonna be allowed?
I believe it's
We usually do
three.
We can do 3, but you'll need to come up to the podium.
No, yeah, is it time?
Yes, yes. Please tell us your name and where you're from.
Okay, perfect. Hello, City Council. My name is Raul Fernandez. I am from Scottsbluff. Okay, it's an honor to be here. I always get jitters when I come up here. It's nice to see our city government upholding this constitution, meeting up every once in a while, making things get done. Okay, today I got 2 agendas today. I'll start off with the easier one, and then I'll end with the harder one. Okay, Highway 26. It's a problem. We need to figure it out, especially when there's a 20th and 26th. We need to get some engineers together. We need to get some people together, and we need to find a better way to, those stoplights, stop signs, everything is just not enough. The people of Scottsbluff need a little bit more engineering work as far as when it comes to that intersection there, and all of Highway 26, to be honest. The future of Scottsbluff is bright. We are going to be a center of hub where people are going to be coming through. Eastern Wyoming, Eastern Nebraska wants to go to Wyoming, they cross through us, right? North wants to go south, they go through us. So it's about time that we kind of start expanding some roads, making sure they're safe for people, especially if we want tourism to come to this town. We need to make sure it's going to be safe. Because it's not always a lot of Scottsbluff people involved in these accidents. It's a lot of other people from around the panhandle as well. I know us normal people here that live here every single day. We know what to expect, we know the flow. But there are some people coming across that highway, you know, I think it's 65 coming in from a little bit east, and then it's, 60, 75 going once you leave Avenue I, It's a short little amount of time. If we could get some engineers to work that out, that'd be best. Okay, second topic. I recently came across some documents saying Brian Watson, okay? He was an ex-police captain here. He served for Scottsbluff Police Department. He was best friends with Kevin Spencer. This gentleman decided to steal drugs, steal money, and exchange it for street drugs. This wasn't a 1 year approximately. The decertification letter that Mr. Kevin Spencer wrote off on said approximately 1 year that he had been doing this. I have from Mr. Brian's own lawyer that he was addicted to narcotics since April 12th, 17. That is more than 1 year, Mr. Kevin Spencer. When he wrote the decertification letter, he said it was just about when he wrote the decertification letter, it said that it was just department's evidence that was missing. It was evidence, money that your best friend was exchanging for street narcotics. I think this needs to be, 2 things need to come from this. I think we need to look into a little bit more about some of the documents that Mr. Kevin Spencer has put his signature on. They may be fraudulent, And then second is we need more drug tests for the police officers. It's not just Brian Watson that has been narcotics. We had Tyler Webby as well with marijuana. We also have more in the panhandle. Sheriffs, Gearing, nobody is immune to the society. But if we're gonna put our trust in a police department, it has to start from the beginning has to be good, the captain has to be good, and everyone else underneath has to be good. We've already seen the captain has been influenced by narcotics, and Kevin Spencer is putting his signature on documents that's not really true. Thank you for your time, guys. I appreciate you guys and all the hard work you guys do.
Thanks, Raul.
Thank you.
There are other public comments? Okay. Consent calendar. Items in the consent calendar are proposed for adoption by one action for all items unless any member of the council requests that an item be considered separately.
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
A motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
A second from Jeannie. Any comments, questions?
Solomon,
Yes.
McCarrigan,
Yes.
Stricker,
Yes.
Vidlac,
Yes. Financial report. Do we have a financial report tonight? No.
No.
Okay. So we'll go into our public hearings. So council to conduct a public hearing set for this date at 6 p.m. to reconsider the rezone of part of Lot 1, Tax Lot 13, and accredited lands in Section 27, Township 22 North, Range 55, west of the 6th p.m., commonly identified as 1902 West Overland Drive, from R1A, Single Family Residential, to C3 Heavy Commercial. Before we do that, because we have several of these tonight, I just would like to request that anyone who intends to speak at the public hearings tonight, if they would stand, if you intend to speak, and raise your right hand. Does anyone intend to speak at any of them? If you would just mind doing that for me? Yes, now, please. If you could please stand. Do you swear and affirm that the statements you make tonight to the city council are true and accurate? If so, just say, I do. I do. Thank you. So I will go ahead and open the public hearing.
Sweet.
All right. Mayor and council, at the April Planning Commission meeting, Planning Commission reviewed this rezone for 1902 West Overland. It's currently zoned R1A, single family residential. The property owner, Travis Allen, is requesting a rezone to C3 in order to relocate his tree removal business there. As you can see from the staff report, the comprehensive plan identifies this as residential, but similarly to the ABC Nursery rezone a couple months ago, this is located in the floodplain. So floodplain ordinance and zoning code promotes residential, commercial, open space over residential use. Industrial over residential. With that being said, staff and Planning Commission made a positive recommendation on approval to changes from R1A to C3, and as you can see from the zoning map, this is a creation of a new district, and it will serve as a buffer between the western M1 industrial district, which is the concrete plant, and then the single-family dwellings to the east. And if you have any questions, I know Travis Allen is here, and he's requesting a waiver of the 3 readings so he can continue to improve the property.
I was going to ask why the waiver of the 3.
So Travis has been in the process of cleaning that up, and in order to continue to utilize it and put up fence, he'd like to fence the property. With it being residential, he can only put in a 3.5-foot fence on the front, and he would like to have a 6-foot fence, I believe. Is it 6 foot or taller?
Yes, 6 foot more.
Around the property, so his equipment is secure, and then he'd also like to get a sign up for his business, and he cannot put a sign up in the residential.
okay.
And being the busy season, he's just wanting to get it rolling.
Okay.
Travis, is there anything you want to add or want
No,
to share?
if we can waive those other 3 meetings so I can continue to,
Why don't you, would you
You go ahead.
That's all right, just so people can hear you.
if we could just void those other 3 meetings so I could continue to do the dirt work and the foundation and footings of the building. getting it pre-plotted and the finalized plot, and get the fence up and get my business sign up. It'd be greatly appreciated.
How much work have you done so far?
It's amazing. I've gotten so much from the community about the change and how it was an eyesore before, and it's looking great. I mean, if you see in the photo here, it was bad. I mean, I'm probably several thousand in cleanup. I mean, the house is gone, the trailers are gone, a lot of the garbage is gone. I mean, it's looking amazing.
Awesome.
And across the road, I guess, what we all know is the Whistle Stop.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
They got a restaurant going in there, so, I mean, it's a big progress for our community, and
Awesome.
I appreciate it if, we can move forward,
How long have you been in business?
since 2020.
2020.
Yep. And, very blessed and helping out the community, doing tree work, tree trimming to keep our community beautiful, healthy trees and, landscaping. It's just, in order to keep growing, I need this shop, I need this lot, to continue to grow and help out our community.
Thank you.
Yep. That's
Okay,
all.
thank you.
Questions for Zach, Travis?
I really don't have any questions. I usually do, but it was all pretty self-explanatory in the packet. So I just wanted to make a couple comments. I really see this as a kind of pretty much the same thing we did just to the east, on the east side of the transition between commercial and residential with the old ABC, or if it's still ABC, whatever it is. And I think this makes a nice transition. I did have a question on the waiver of the 3 readings. I'm not, sometimes they make abundant sense, but I'm usually default to more times. However, the explanation of the fence and moving on and the things you did here, I'd be open to the waiver of those 3 meetings. I drive by this thing 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day, in the fall during beet harvest, and what it looked like then and what it looks like now is like night and day. And so I think it was yeoman's work to do what's been done so far, and so I'll support it.
Anything from y'all?
Well, we'll have to mark the packet, the council packet, as Exhibit 1.
Okay.
And we would offer to make sure Exhibit 1 gets into the record of the public hearing.
Any other comments, anything else from the public? So now I need to enter the exhibits before I close it?
Just the one.
Just the one?
Yeah, go ahead and.
Okay.
I think if you just enter all the pages of the agenda statement that the development director
So
gave you
I'll
in the
enter all
packet.
the, Exhibit 1, enter all the pages of the exhibit that the development director had put into the packet.
Right, we'll be doing that as Exhibit says.
Okay. All right. Close that public hearing. Okay. Council to conduct a public hearing set for this date at 6 p.m. to consider the rezone of blocks 2 and 4, Whistle Creek subdivision, commonly identified as a tract of land southeast of US Highway 26 and city route from C3 heavy commercial to M1 light manufacturing and industrial. Open the public hearing.
Mayor and council, I'll start out. The applicant requested a withdrawal of this agenda item, this rezone, which you'll be able to consider, I believe, later, right? Not during the public hearing. The withdrawal
It's
request.
gonna be in the packet.
Yep.
So,
But anyways, Planning Commission reviewed this on April 14th. This rezone would have been the C3 to M1A, or excuse me, M1. It was under the impression that a fertilizer plant would be installed in this location. Staff and planning commission made a 4-2 recommendation, 4 negative, or 4 for a excuse me. It was a negative recommendation that they made. 4 were for that negative recommendation and 2 were against. So 4 against the rezone, 2 for the rezone. As you'll see in Exhibit 1, that has the staff report, the unofficial minutes, the maps, site plan and whatnot from the seller and the potential buyer simplot. But yeah, so, but they requested a withdrawal of this agenda item.
Okay,
And just as further explanation, we have an ordinance on these procedures. And the ordinance says that the item can be withdrawn with the permission of the city council, which we'll get to when the ordinance is on the agenda. However, it also says that a public notice of the hearing has already been published and the public hearing set. We still have to have a public hearing because we've given people notice of it. So that's, we're gonna go through with the public hearing, and that's what we're doing right now.
makes sense.
So with that being said, I know there's people from Simplot here. If you guys wanna come in, have you been sworn in? You wanna testify or not?
I'm sure there's other people here that.
There are other people here too.
We'll let them go first and then I'll rebuttal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question, is the applicant here?
I don't see him.
The applicant is not here.
So yeah, anyone that would like to speak, if you'd come up and introduce yourself and share.
My name's Lee Panay. So I guess I'm a little confused. If it's withdrawn, is there any need for
Yes.
further statement?
Our ordinance still requires us to hold a public hearing. Even
Okay,
though it's been withdrawn,
okay,
we had published notice and it was withdrawn afterwards, so yes, Lee, we should go ahead and
All right.
finish off the public hearing, and this is your opportunity to talk to the council about it.
all right. Well, I was in opposition to the change. My family owns the farm directly across the street, or across Highway 26 from the proposed lot. So that's the personal interest that we have in this particular event. I had a couple concerns, general concerns, which would be along the lines of like safety stuff. I'm an ex-police officer. I was a sergeant with Scottsbluff PD and I had like 21 years in. So, but I've been in the area long enough to see plenty of accidents and weather events and stuff like that. And with the prevailing wind coming from the northwest usually, other than today. But that was always one of the factors, I guess, that as an officer we consider is the, what the potentials of different things. Like when the anhydrous tanks were up there in significant numbers and lots of gallons, it was always one of the potentials was on a windy night, some major failure, etc. So there were some safety issues, concerns I had as far as town goes. Also, my father-in-law, who was on the board, the zoning board, at one point at least. Before he passed away, he started a subdivision on some of that ground up off of 42nd Street. And my mother-in-law decided not to continue with it, but now she's passed away, so I believe probably my brother-in-law is going to continue on with that project. I believe he's taking hold of that 20 acres that's up there. And part of the draw of that, matter of fact, Dan Ramsey, which was my father-in-law, he had a sign up there, "This could be your view," which was, up on the hill, looking down towards the bluff and just the serene aesthetics of it. That was one of the big things. Not that this seemed, they had presented some kind of pictures to the planning committee, and no one in the cheap seats, I guess, got to see the pictures and stuff like that. So I don't know what they were proposing as far as a layout, size of a building, all of that sort of thing. But hearing that it was fertilizer mixing as well as storage, I was envisioning, bins and buildings and more industrial type stuff. I did go through because I wanted to make sure, I wasn't forgetting from my police days, but the C3 classification versus the M1 and the significant changes, at least that I was noting as I read through the uses list and the special uses lists both, made me more concerned, because going from the C3 to the M1 has the potential, not that Simplot would do that, but obviously there's always potential a ground could be sold, and moving forward that would have potential for things like a junkyard, large size petroleum storage, scrap metal processing facility, solid waste transfer station. Some stuff like that was on the M1 listing, which right there at the west edge of town, the main thoroughfare coming from the west, anybody traveling into town is going to be, that's their first impression of Scotts Bluff. So, I guess depending on what would happen through time, that's just an added note that I made as I was reading through the ordinances, and just some potential. And of course, it affects us personally because, like I mentioned, my father-in-law, through the years, I'd have discussions with him about where town was headed, what his plans were for the future, and he always had his eye on the future. And he used to think, after Walmart moved, Home Depot moved in, it seemed like a lot of the retail type commercial establishments were growing out that way. And that was, I think, his vision moving forward. Homes up on the hill off the highway, but along the highway, more of a commercial, premium type real estate for retail space and whatnot. Not necessarily an industrial type or manufacturing type. Along with that, seems like as time goes by, we get these little plots of ground that sprout up and everything gets kind of separated and discombobulated. So like, it makes more sense that retail's together. If you want to find fast food, you drive down 27th Street usually. So the same type of thing, same mindset is you have commercial space, retail commercial space, and then you mix in manufacturing or industrial, and it just seems like you'd want to lump certain types of zoning and keep it in a certain area for various reasons. None of the things I mentioned are knocks against Simplot. I think they've been a long time business. I think the city probably should be very pleased to have them around. I mean, I don't have any negatives from my memory of a policeman or a civilian of them. It didn't fit what I was seeing the city becoming. So with the personal interests involved as well, I thought it was my turn to get up here and pitch it. So there you have it.
Thank you.
Thanks, thank you.
Others?
Hi, my name is Jane Moran. I am Lee's aunt. I am a descendant of the family that has owned this farm for over 130 years. And I started my own business in 1984, and it lies in the corner of this piece of land. It's Jane's Greenhouse. And you may think that I work inside a building, but actually a greenhouse is designed to open the back end and pull air through it all the time. So when I found out they were considering a fertilizer plant, I looked up, are there possible pollutants that come from a fertilizer plant? And I don't claim to be an expert in this, but it listed quite a few things that are harmful in the air. And I've had several experiences in the 40 years that I've owned my business with bad air being produced nearby. Next to me is the Westway Church, which is one of the largest churches, I believe, in our community. They have a huge community garden behind their church. And on the other side of that was a business called Panhandle Cartage, and they would recycle pellets. But somehow they also had scraps they needed to burn, so they built an incinerator. I don't know if that's allowed in a C3 or not, but it became pretty evident that it was affecting me. I would have smoke in my greenhouse. My customers would smell something really awful. And so I complained to someone I knew on building and zoning, and it was, well, they quit burning, which was a blessing to me. But I've also had chemical spills happen in my parking lot. And my experience is that when that happens, the person who does it doesn't really report it. And I called the company that had been responsible for the spill, and the manager didn't know anything about the spill. And I said, what are you going to do about this? So they came over and they dug up 4 inches of soil in my parking lot and hauled it away. But for 10 years, nothing grew where this spill happened. These things happen. My concern, if there is a fertilizer plant, if there is pollution, and the winds blow it, it will blow it across Scottsbluff. We're more aware of pollution these days. And I live 7 miles from the sugar factory, but when the wind's blowing just so in the wintertime, I can smell it. So I know it travels. That's my main concern. I sold this 19-acre parcel to some people 10 years ago. They were going to build storage units, they told me. And I thought that would be a compatible business with mine because it wouldn't produce anything noxious that I would have to worry about. However, if you manufacture fertilizer, you might affect the water quality. And I have to have good water for my business. I have to have clean air. So those are my concerns about that. The other concern that I have is that the city of Scottsbluff did an extensive planning of this community, and they set up a 2-mile radius where they zoned everything R1A because they did not want spot zoning. They didn't want a fertilizer plant going up next to a church, for instance. And this is exactly spot zoning if you change the zoning on this to manufacturing. It does not match the rest of what is going on around it. North of this parcel, on the other side of the highway, is the rest of our farm, about 140 acres. There are 4 different residential subdivisions along 42nd Street. Lee mentioned the Cedar View, which my brother started. It's on a hill. It's very scenic. In fact, this part of Scottsbluff is scenic. And some people could care less. But for some of us, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful to see the shades on the bluff change as the sun goes down, or how it changes when it rains. And then you can see the river. So I think that you should take in consideration there's 3 more residential subdivisions along 42nd Street. It's the Young Addition, Kendall Addition, and Cornet Heights. Along 42nd Street, there is a water line, sewer line, and a gas line. So that's ideal for residential areas to be built. The infrastructure's already there. If you would change the zoning on this parcel south of the highway, I know that stretch of City Route Road is kind of an orphan street. It belongs to the county. So if it snows, the city plows up to the church, and that's done. And the state plows the curve, and it's done. But the stretch between the curve and the church is the county property. And that road is, the city did not want to adopt that road because it's in pretty bad shape. And they don't want to pay for repairing it, so it's patched up every year. But that would be an expense for the city that you would have to consider. I think that the farm north of the highway would be a great place for homes to be built, and just homes for everybody. It's just a beautiful place, and one of the few places left in Scottsbluff that's close. It's because my family's been so stubborn about selling it. We keep farming it, but I'm the oldest member of my family now, and my mom told me I was the last farmer in the family, but it's kind of stretching it a little bit. However, my daughter has taken over my business, and we will continue. I'm kind of skipping around here, but I would like to say that I noticed Simplot has great, huge storage tanks on their property behind Ashley Furniture. So you don't really see them, but there's 3 that are probably the size of a small house. And there are numerous other storage tanks there also. I live 2 miles due west of Simplot, and thanks to the wind last June, my trees blew down, and now when I look out my kitchen window, I can see all these storage tanks, even though they're 2 miles away. Is that important? Not really, but if you're driving along the highway, you're going to see what I see. And I think we want to keep our community looking very appealing and attractive for people who might want to move here. We want them to see that we have something different. We're not like Kearney, which is just endless cornfields everywhere. We have the river, we have the bluff, we have great recreation areas in the Wildcat Hills, and I think we want to keep our community looking really appealing, and people want to move here. So those are my reasons. They're personal, they're community oriented, but I really feel that it would be a mistake to put an industrial area in this location. So thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Could you sign our report? Thank you.
I'm Chris Zulik. I'm a crop advisor for Simplot. What we're planning on doing, what we would like to do, as you can see, we're down. We've been at the same spot for over 50 years in Scottsbluff. If you slide the map a little that way, you can see where we're at. We employ over 40 people. We are an agricultural community. So, as she was saying, she can see some tanks. Well, one of them tanks is Simplot's. 2 of them are Panhandle Co-ops. Okay? There's 2 fertilizer plants within, 100 yards of each other. We are, neither Panhandle or Simplot is an industrial where we make our own fertilizer. This all comes in, hauled in on a truck, stored in our tanks, goes out to our farmers. Okay, there is nothing in there that we are building, any toxins, any fumes, anything like that that's gonna come off. We have outgrown our spot. We've been in the same spots for over 50 years, donated millions and millions of dollars to this community. And I just think that for us to grow, either we have to move or Simplot will find somewhere else to go. That's where they're at. We have very nice equipment. We have very nice tanks. We will make sure everything is, you know, up the up. We're not just gonna come in and have a bunch of junk laying around there. If we could, we would expand where we're at, but we just cannot grow anymore. And in order for us to grow in an agricultural community, we have to have land. So this is our opportunity to expand, but in that area, if you're driving down Highway 26 coming into Scotts Bluff, what do you see? Steve's truck, right off the bat. Okay, yeah, that road that she was talking about that nobody wants to claim as theirs, we drive that road 365 days a year with our trucks. We come right down that road. We go right past that church. You know, either way, we're driving that road. We do not handle anhydrous. You know, let's get that out there. I think Wesco's the only one that still considers handling anhydrous. We gave that up a long time ago. We have security cameras. Everything is locked. Everything is in containment. Everything is double walled on all these tanks. If there's a spill, it's got to go through 2 walls of the tank to get out, right? There's containment walls. We have everything's on concrete slabs where we load. When we pull a truck in to load fertilizer, whether it be 1034O, 32 thiazole, whatever, right? It's just getting mixed. It goes into the tank, it's on a concrete slab. If there's a spill, it's on a concrete slab, it's sucked up, put into a nurse trailer, and disposed of. Goes probably out to somebody's grass or somewhere, you know, whatever we do with it. But we do not just go and, we're not gonna be killing her greenhouse. The chemicals that was gonna be on that place has been on the same spot that Panhandle and Simplot's had for years. We've handled 2,4-Ds, dicambas, Roundup, all of that right there. You know, that has a containment in it. You know, the plant that they're looking to build, just the building alone, you guys seen how many millions of dollars that is. But we're not manufacturing, we gotta make that clear. We are not making our own fertilizer. It's hauled in. We blend it, take it to farmers out from Berea to Wyoming to south of Kimball to Sydney. You know, there's a lot of jobs and a lot of things at stake and a lot of money that the community is gonna lose if Simplot leaves. It's millions and millions of dollars. We support baseball, little kid stuff, the 4-H programs, everything else that's gotta be considered in this. So we don't want it to look trashy. We have to grow. And this is right here next to our facility where we can grow.
Can I ask what type of a facility, like is it a brick structure? What type of a structure are they putting?
Well,
It's a steel shed.
It's a steel one,
It'll be
okay.
steel buildings or steel tanks.
Have you got sworn in, sir? Okay.
so this is Kyle Lewis, he's another crop advisor, but they did go through with the planning commission on what the buildings would look like, what the area would have in it. You know, Simplot spends millions and millions and millions to make sure it's gonna be correct before they even do anything.
I wish we had a picture, but there'll be BNC steel buildings, there'll be concrete slabs, steel tanks, like Chris was saying, they'll be double walled. What other question, I don't know what else you wanna know.
Yeah.
It's not a wood structure.
Okay.
They're talking about having fire suppression there. Cause we have to, I guess, you know. Like Chris said, we really need it, and if you guys aren't willing to, they have already looked at a property west of here. We need to move on this fairly quick. because we gotta get out of another place in Gearing, so I guess you're either with us or you're not. We'll move on to west of here
And that's, we don't want to do that. We would.
But the request also is to take this off.
Yes.
To make
We're
decisions.
just making our point of why.
They wanted, and I wish they were here, they wanted us to pull it off, maybe somebody else knows more than we do, pull it off. Because they were talking about, instead of rezoning it, maybe like a C1 to an M, I don't know.
Okay, okay. So just
But-
information for us.
Right,
Okay.
we came just to be here, because we knew there'd be other people here,
Sure. Okay.
but yeah.
Couple questions. If you're done.
No, yeah, go ahead, Jerry.
Jeannie.
Oh,
Or-
Yeah, okay.
no, I just was wondering, is the property where they are now, is it zoned as
It's in one
manufacturing?
currently.
It is. And you guys probably need the rail spur, right? Or do you
Yeah,
not?
so that's the thing, is moving here, you know, we will just have a warehouse,
Okay,
a shop, and a liquid plant. The dry plant will stay over where we're at now.
okay,
If that doesn't happen, then it'll all move out of town.
okay,
It'll all move to another spot where there's a rail spur.
okay,
Yeah. This is just what is close to us,
yeah,
so we don't have to travel real far.
okay,
So, and I understand everybody's concerns, I'm not, you know, I do, but it's not gonna look trashy,
yeah.
it'll look better than it has for the last 5 years.
And access will come off of that little road, I assume?
We're gonna come off back by where, well, at the corner, back on whatever, 40, what is that, 27th Street?
27th
Okay.
Street.
Yeah, we will not come off onto Highway 26.
Okay,
There will not be any access points from what we know
okay,
on,
I don't think you can, because it's a 4-lane highway. I mean, we have a crossing right there. It's gotta come off of 27th Street, we'll come around.
okay.
Jerry, you have?
Yeah,
Got some
so
questions?
refresh me on the size of your main building, and if you're doing liquid there, I've seen just a bird's eye view of a few things with some little dots and squares. So there's tanks, so if the dry stuff is staying where it's at, what's the big building?
So I think the number 7 up there
Yes.
will be a warehouse
For
for chemicals.
what kind of chemicals?
Glyphosate, 2,4-Ds, all the
So-
chemicals that all the farmers need here, or that'll be dry micronutrients that we use at the dry plant.
Okay. So if I'm understanding right, then your dry fertilizers stay at your existing facility that you'll keep open.
Correct,
All your liquid will move from your existing facility to here.
correct.
And what are those liquids?
So it'd be.
Fertilizers?
Yes, nitrogen, phosphate, potassium.
sulfur.
And then in the warehouse would be some dry.
It'll be
stuff?
seed. So when you're.
Herbicides and pesticides?
Yeah, so on the fertilizer side, whether it's liquid or dry, you get into micronutrients, right? So when they're dry, they come in a tote bag. So those tote bags would be stored in the big shed until we needed them over at the dry plant. And they would load them up on a truck, take them over and unload 10 or 12 at a time. That would get them through 4 or 5 days.
And so is it mixed at the existing facility? Or no?
Nothing's getting mixed.
Well,
It gets mixed in the dry if it's like sulfur or whatever,
It
right?
gets, so they come in individually, if you understand, nitrogen, potassium, phosphate, comes in separate things,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
We go out, we soil sample these guys' fields and decide, hey, this is what they need to put on, so then you take some of this, some of this, some of this, some of this, put it into a truck or a liquid trailer, right there at the facility, out the door, down the road to the farmer,
But at what point does it mix?
right there on the plant.
So it is a mixing facility?
Of each fertilizer.
Of each
Yeah,
fertilizer.
that's what I'm getting at, is
Right.
you do some mixing there, which,
But there was nothing out of that liquid that would harm her greenhouse or anybody else.
okay.
Um,
I'm just trying to understand.
right. So right now, we lease the old Lockwood building. pretty much all of it. And we're gonna be out of that lease, right? So in order to store everything that we store at the Lockwood building, that is what that shed's getting built for, right? We have to have a facility to hold our stuff. Like I said, we're an agriculture community. The amount of fertilizer and chemicals and everything else that moves this time of year, people don't understand. But if we didn't have this community, this agriculture community, there would not be a Scottsbluff Gearing. You know, we can't afford to lose industries here because it is the backbone of western Nebraska.
A few more questions. The shop building, is that just repairing
Maintenance
equipment?
shop.
Maintenance shop?
And the bar building over there, I'm told is gonna be an office.
So how do you fuel your equipment and trucks? Is that
Everything
off-site
goes to
or is it?
Offsite.
So you don't have
We don't
diesel
have,
tanks?
we don't have
oil
fuel tanks on site. No. Everything is fueled up at the fueling truck stop, fueling station.
And if I remember hearing you right, the liquid tanks are double-walled, similar to a fuel tank. And you have containment beyond that as well? Did I
So the
hear?
state requires, might be
So-
speaking out of turn.
Concrete
So
walls?
if they're double walled, the state doesn't require that we have them inside of a containment. So some of them will be double walls, some of them will be in a containment. If you look at the picture there, where you see the little guys go up, no,
Yeah, the small ones are
the
probably.
small ones are,
containment.
that's in a containment. The three big ones outside are just double walled.
And so, what would you say the size of that biggest double-wall tank is?
I don't know what they're doing. I'm gonna guess it's probably a 750 to 1 million gallon tank.
Dimensions?
You're
Estimate.
probably 30 feet high and probably, PG, would you say that's 60 foot around? I'm guessing 30 foot high, 60 foot around.
And that's the largest one.
That would be the largest one.
And how tall, and refresh me how tall, the building seems to be a pretty good size building, like in the 300-foot range, if I remember,
Yeah.
I'm trying to scroll through. But compared to Steve's, it's as big or bigger. What's the height of that?
I'm guessing the sidewalls on that are probably gonna be 16 foot.
And the peak?
So the peak, you're probably looking at close to 20. I don't know, I haven't seen the actual drawings of them.
That's where the engineers have all this from, you know?
Yeah, see, for me, I'd like to, it'd be nice for me to more thoughtfully consider this, to have something that is a architect rendering, if you will, a three.
Well, I think that's why they're
3D
trying to move the rezoning. Because honestly, I think they were thinking we were gonna need all of this other stuff coming in, right? And the Scottsbluff I really don't know. I wasn't here, I watched it, right? But when the zoning commission, you know, they didn't come and explain to you guys, I think, what exactly is gonna go on, right? They didn't tell you that we don't handle anhydrous, we're not making fertilizer like an ammonia plant, like what you see going outside of Cheyenne. That is not there. It is a Wesco Panhandle Co-op Simply. Pretty cut and dry. I mean, it's gonna look nice. We're gonna have our facilities, everything's concreted, ventilated. How much water do we go through for the city of Scottsbluff, and how much electricity do we buy from them? A lot. You know, we're not planning on drilling a well, but we can. You know, we can go up to, I think, 50 gallons or whatever, right? But we use a lot of water in our fertilizer, you know, so the infrastructure can be here. It's right there to Budweiser. You know, it's right past the church.
we're not talking like we're being in the middle of town. We just would like it to be rezoned, for you guys to understand, to consider that, so we can move forward.
Do you have other questions?
Yeah, just a couple more.
Okay.
I understand this might seem a little bit premature asking about those things and architects renderings and all of those things. And I'm pretty sure that Zach is probably saying he's asking the same thing over and over. My point in these, and to try and find out, even though it seems premature, is I don't want to lead anybody down a rosy path that might not exist. And so in order to, in my mind, weigh in a decision, I like a more complete picture than just maybe this, maybe that.
Have you seen the designs?
This is the only design I was provided.
Well, you're talking above my pay grade.
Does that make sense?
Yes, but you are, the people that do that are in Boise, right?
Yeah.
My manager lives in the eastern part of the state. So, right now, this, you're looking at 3 of the crop advisors in Scotts Bluff, right here. This is our livelihood. They asked us to come represent. I can't get into that, but I can tell you that Simplot is huge. And with their attorneys and their architects and everything else that they have, I'm sure they have it figured out. I'm just a guy that takes care of crops.
Too bad they didn't give us that information.
Well,
so, for example, one of the things that being the gateway, and I know across the road, but I can't do anything about that, Steve's. I think that it seems to, I grew up in this community, moved away and moved back. It seems like at the time I was gone, an awful lot of big drab steel buildings were built in the city. And at the gateway, I'm not sure that's good. So that's why I was trying to figure out what it might look like aesthetically if it's to go to this area for a gateway. I don't know. I could keep going, but I'll stop right there.
Is there any?
I wish I could tell you.
Oh,
I mean, and I don't know.
Do anyone else have any questions
Thank you.
with them? Anyone else would like to speak?
My name is Brendan Rice, and I'm here on behalf of my client, Frank Properties 2 LLC, which is the adjacent owner immediately east of this property. And I was requested to come speak in objection to this. With the change to industrial, my client has long-term concern about who may come in after Simplot and what may go on there, along with a sincere belief that industrial areas belong south and east of town, which is what the current comprehensive plan calls for. And my understanding is what the yet to be approved proposal is in the new comprehensive plan is to keep all of that on the other side of town. My client's ground is zoned ag currently, and it is a working farm. He has a concern about the future of that area if this rezone is allowed to occur.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Public hearing?
I'm only coming up here because Mr. Rice came up here. Been here a long time. We've worked for Simplot for a long time.
What's your name?
PJ Hain is my name. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We would just, we're surrounded by farms. We're talking about ag land. Steve's Trucking Equipment's right there. We've been there for 50 plus years. We've never polluted the water. We've never had problems with law enforcement. We've never, any of that stuff. We want to be a good, solid company for our community. We want to keep Scotts Bluff, this is our opportunity to keep Scotts Bluff the hub for agriculture. So growers come to Scotts Bluff, they come to our fertilizer plant, they go to Steve's Trucking Equipment, they go to John Deere, they go to Dooley Oil, so on and so on. If we move out of this area, I'm worried though, other industries are gonna follow us as well. That'd be my main concern. We have to keep it clean, look nice. To your point, we got to make it good, you know. We are treating customers as well, right? So trusted customers come in, we keep our plant real clean, aesthetically appealing. Our customers wouldn't appreciate that if it's their community, it's our community. We don't want an eyesore in our community. We live here as well. We own land here, houses. We don't want to affect all those things. And I completely understand where these guys are coming from, but we respect that as well. That's it. That's my 2 cents. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? You have anything you want to add, Kevin or Kent?
I don't think so.
Make sure the exhibit is in the evidence, exhibit 1, which is the
Exhibit
agenda
1.
packet.
Exhibit number 1, there's a report from Development Services Department that contains the Planning Commission agenda packet, documents dated April 14th, 2025, the application of PHS land and cattle letter, the property owner, staff report, property maps. There's also the unapproved minutes from the April 14th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting, site plan and operational statement from Simplot Grower Solutions, Scottsbluff Code of Ordinance sections 25-2-46 fertilizer, storage and mixing plant definition, and 25-3-16, which is M-1 light manufacturing and industrial district. We also have exhibit number 2, which is the email requesting withdrawal of rezone request from PHS land and cattle.
Okay. So we'll close that public hearing. Council to conduct a public hearing set for this date at 6 p.m. to consider the zoning text amendments to Chapter 25, Articles 2 and 3 regarding adult day service facilities and respite care facilities, and to Chapter 25, Article 5 regarding off-street parking surfaces. We'll open the public hearing.
Mayor and council, this is kind of a combination of 2 zoning ordinances the planning commission reviewed. The first one being the adult day service facility and respite care service facility. The city was approached by Ray Misner of Compass Home Health. He's looking to do that in his building on 5th and 27th Street. After reviewing code, we really couldn't find anything it would meet. So we reviewed what the state of Nebraska had for these 2 facilities and used those definitions. So this first part will be adding the definitions of adult day service facility and respite care service facility, as well as adding these 2 uses as principal permitted uses in C1, C2, C3, and O and P, so the majority of commercial districts. And then also there is a zoning text amendment to the parking surfaces. The way code currently reads is gravel is an acceptable parking surface, so kind of the example given to planning commission would be, Walmart could have had a gravel parking lot. Staff reviewed other cities, found Kearney's to be pretty favorable and flexible, and modeled it off of that, where gravel is removed as a permitted surface for required parking, but there's exceptions. For example, in the country, like in ag and rural residential, gravel's fine. It's permitted in M1 and M2, except for accessible parking and driveway approaches. And then additional parking, like in the residential districts, so would be permitted to be gravel. So your driveway would have to be paved for your cars, but say you wanted to have a pad for your camper or boat, that could be graveled. And then finally, in the commercial districts, storage areas and then excess parking could be graveled. This was 2 public hearings reviewed by Planning Commission. Both received positive recommendation on approval. And I believe, I don't know if Mr. Misner's here, but he had requested a waiver of the 3 reading as he's in the process of getting his facility licensed and would need the zoning updated to facilitate that moving forward quicker.
Does this change around the gravel, does that affect anyone currently that has
No, this
anything?
would, anybody who already has it would be legal non-conforming, so it wouldn't force anybody to do this, just new construction from here on out.
Procedural question, please, probably for Kevin or Kent, is, so if these 3 readings are waived, that's for both of these issues then?
It's in one ordinance.
Yeah, okay.
Other comments or anyone would like to speak?
I'm Jolene with Compass Home Health.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I was asked to be here to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Do you have any questions for her?
Can you basically describe what the facility, what you guys are providing?
so what we'll be providing is adult day services for anyone over the age of 65 to start. Eventually it'll go into adults with disabilities as well. It's been a need in the community, I think, especially, with not having the senior centers like we have in the past. I know the nursing homes used to provide these cares, but this will be on a little more of a bigger level. It's definitely a need. It's been, a passion of mine. I've done long-term care for 27 plus years. So adults or elderly are my passion. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
So it'll be like physical therapy and,
so no, it'll mainly be more recreational, providing meals, providing social activities. Eventually it'll grow into appointments, taking them to appointments, kind of anything you would find in an adult or in a assisted living, but it would be in a day center
During the day.
instead. Yeah.
Any other questions?
So the clients then are not in assisted living or nursing, they are brought in by caregivers?
Most of the time, yes. Yeah. It would be like, parent or children taking care of their parents in home. More kind of like a respite area for them to come during the day, just like you would, a daycare center. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
We have nursing staff there.
Yes. Well, we have a nurse on staff, and then, I think I'm not sure what our ratio to, clients will be, but it'll be staffed appropriately.
That would be based on state regulations?
Yeah, state regulations are pretty broad, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
okay, thanks.
Any other comments for this? Do we have any exhibits for this? No?
You have the agenda packet.
The packet from the Development Services Department.
Yes,
is
it's exhibit 1.
Okay, all right. Close that public hearing. Okay, council to conduct a public hearing set for this date at 6 p.m. to receive comment concerning the city's application to the Nebraska Department of Economic Development for the owner-occupied housing community development block grant. I'll open the public hearing.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Wilenko. I'm the grant manager at Panhandle Area Development District who administered this grant. So we are shutting it down now. We're closing it. We're done. We were able to improve 13 homes within Scottsbluff. The general program goes that a homeowner is available, if they qualify, is available for up to $25,000 in home improvements. So I believe we had about 20 applicants total in Scottsbluff, and out of those 20, 13 qualified for the program, and that is all done now, yes. I think we spent about, with the 13 houses, and they were almost all about to that 25 max, because that 25 doesn't go as far as it used to, I believe, in like 2009 when it was first set. So it was about $330,000, and then of course we have the admin and the construction management that as well added onto that cost. So primarily it was senior citizens and single parent homes that qualified. So we did everything from, depending on the house, replacing siding, replacing windows, replacing doors, bringing basements up to code. It's a variation of things. And this is a CDBG project. So it's under the same umbrella as like the downtown revitalization that Scottsbluff did a few years ago.
Any questions, anything you want to add?
Yes, Mr. Kett.
David, do you Do you anticipate some changes to the CDBG funding, or have there been? What's the status of the program?
So, so the administration currently released what's called a skinny budget, which doesn't really hold water. It's just kind of their rough draft idea, brainstorm. But in that skinny budget, they're calling to eliminate CDBG. I do want to stress the importance of this program for rural America. It benefits, if you're just looking at the owner-occupied rehab alone, right? People who couldn't afford to improve their houses had their houses improved, which meant real estate value goes up. The contractors made out good on this. So you're seeing a total benefit of the community. It's not just owner-occupied rehab, it's also things like downtown revitalization, public works. So if CDBG goes away, I think rural America is going to be the one who feels it the hardest. Larger municipalities generally have other ways of finding funds if they need to. Scottsbluff, Gordon, Rushville, things like that. If this goes away, it's going to hurt. I would see more ghost towns probably, because you're not going to be able, there's downtown communities that aren't going to be able to make the improvements they need to keep the downtown lively and then going, right? So, yes, we would like to see it stay.
So the homes you talked about, are those just here, or is it all western Nebraska?
So this one was just, I did Scottsbluff and Morrill. So this was applied for in 2019, before I started at PAD. The funds were granted in 2020, and right as things were kind of getting going, the pandemic hit, which put kind of a 2-year pause. So then when I started with PAD in January of 2022, it was almost like a brand new, hey, you're new, here you go. So, yeah, so currently we've just done Morrill and Scottsbluff. Someone mentioned new housing. We can look across the street just to know that new housing isn't affordable right now. So things like owner-occupied rehab give communities a way to try to stay afloat and give you an alternative to something besides new housing. The program works so if a homeowner, gets approved, let's just say they're gonna use the whole $25,000, every year, it's a 5-year loan basically, and every year it goes down 5% or 20% of what they own. So after 5 years, it's forgiven. So as long as they don't sell their house within 5 years, they don't owe anything. So it's great for them. If they do sell it, they just have to pay the remainder of whatever percentage was left.
Makes sense. Any other questions? Comments?
Sounds like a good program.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you guys. Thank you, everyone.
Any exhibits for this? No.
We did not get any exhibits for this one.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. We'll close the public hearing. All right. Resolutions and ordinances. Council to consider action on the second reading of the ordinance removing certain term requirements of members serving on the Economic Development Citizen Advisory Commission.
An ordinance of the City of Scottsbluff, Nebraska, amending the Scottsbluff Municipal Code at Section 6-2-98 relating to the Economic Development Citizen Advisory Commission by removing certain term requirements, providing for an effective date, and providing for publication in pamphlet form.
Thank you. Council to consider action on, you have a comment?
I do have a comment or a question. So as reading the draft ordinance here, which gets rid of term limits, for this particular board, there are no terms. And my question is, does anybody think it's worth having a term like 3 years, 5 years, pros, cons? I don't know. Other boards have terms and this one doesn't seem to.
And just so you know, there's only 2 boards that don't have terms. If this ordinance goes through it. The LB 840 application review does not have any terms, and this would be the other. So everything else has terms. I don't know why it was set up that way. We don't know why this one was set up with term limits. It was. Our goal was to just fix this one because we're sort of out of compliance with that, so we're trying to fix it. I would just be concerned if we put term limits on there that we'd run out of people. This board particularly, there's an expertise that's required on this board. So just something to consider.
One of those board members, that expertise, or all of them?
One.
Okay. I'm not stuck on having terms. Don't they meet like twice a year?
The citizen
At
review, it meets at least twice a year. They're really the ones that influence the economic development plan. The application review committee, we do have some expertise on that board, and they meet really as needed when there's projects.
So anyway, Mayor, I'm agnostic to whether there's terms or not. I just opened it up to see if anybody thought that it would be good or not.
And it just, so you know, the application review, one member must be experienced in banking or lending, and at least one member must be a certified public accountant. So,
And we have one more reading of this,
yes,
correct? Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
So as is good.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't necessarily I don't have concerns with it. I think if there was no manner to remove someone, but we have that in there, so, I mean, I think that would be my concern, but.
And none of the other committees have terms, limits.
All of them do.
They all do.
Well, not term limits, but they have terms for their.
Like 3 years
they
or 3 years, or,
Yeah.
That's why on consent, sometimes there's reappointment
Right.
of a term out.
Okay.
Okay. Council to consider action on the first reading of the ordinance dealing with the rezone of attractive land in section 27, township 22 north, range 55 west of the 6th PM, more commonly described as 1902 West Overland Drive, Scottsbluff, Nebraska, from R1A, single family, to C3, heavy commercial.
An ordinance of the city of Scottsbluff, Nebraska dealing with zoning, amending section 25-1-4 by updating the official zoning district map to show that part of lot 1, tax lot 13, and accretion in section 27, township 22 north, range 55 west of the 6th principal meridian, Scottsbluff County, Nebraska, and more fully described by meets and bounds in deed, which is more commonly known as 1902 West Overland Drive, Scottsbluff, Nebraska, currently zoned as R-1A single family, will now be included in C-3 heavy commercial, repealing prior section 25-1-4, providing for an effective date and providing for publication in pamphlet form.
Mayor and council, this is Travis's property where he's moving his business to, and he's, just to remind, he's asked to waive the 3 readings because of the fence in the side.
I'll make a motion to waive the 3 readings.
I'll second.
Any comments or discussion on that? Okay.
Solomon?
Yes.
McCarrigan?
Yes.
Stricker?
Yes.
Vidlac?
Yes. So now we need a motion to approve. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any other comments or questions on this? Okay.
Stricker?
Yes.
Vidlac?
Yes.
Solomon?
Yes.
McCarrigan?
Yes.
Okay. Council to consider action on the first reading of the ordinance dealing with the rezone of blocks 2 and 4, Whistle Creek subdivision, commonly identified as attractive land southeast of US Highway 26, and city route from C3 heavy commercial to M1 light manufacturing and industrial.
And if you'll recall, the owner has withdrawn his application under 25-15-8 of our municipal code. And allow him to withdraw that with our permission, so we need a motion, second, and a vote to
Okay.
withdraw that, and then the ordinance would not be considered.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the, allowing the withdrawal of the rezone by the applicant in the Whistle Creek case.
do I have a second?
I'll second.
You got Jeannie? Comments, questions, discussion? If this is not rezoned, do we have to have another public hearing? If they
Yes,
choose to, okay,
if there's another application that comes in for a rezone, they'll go through the whole process. I
again,
believe what they're doing, and our code goes on to say that if this would have been denied, then there's a 12-month waiting period before they
oh, I
can
see, okay,
reapply.
okay.
So I gotta believe part of that's the strategy, but I don't know for sure, so. Anyway,
Okay,
yeah, I mean, it starts the process.
kind of starts it over,
Yes.
okay. Other comments or questions, discussion on this? Okay, we have a motion to withdraw from the applicant in a second. Go ahead.
McCarrigan.
Yes.
Vidlac.
Yes.
Solomon.
Yes.
Stricker.
Yes.
Okay. Council to consider action on the first reading of the ordinance to consider zoning text amendments to Chapter 25, Articles 2 and 3 regarding adult day service and respite care facilities, and Article 5 regarding off-street parking surfaces.
An ordinance of the City of Scottsbluff, Nebraska, amending the Scottsbluff Municipal Code relating to zoning at Chapter 25, Article 2, by adding additional sections for the definition of adult day service facility at 25-2-3.1, definition of agricultural attractions at 25-2-3.2, and definition for respite care service facility at 25-2-95.1, and amending the Scottsbluff Municipal Code at Chapter 25, Article 3 in the Office and Professional District, Central Business District, Neighborhood and Retail Commercial District, and Heavy Commercial District by adding adult day service facility and respite care service facility as principal permitted uses, and amending the Scottsbluff Municipal Code at 25-5-9 to amend the surface requirements for off-street parking facilities, to provide for an effective date, and to provide for publication in pamphlet form.
Great job.
I'm like, so glad you have to read that, Kim. Anything to add on that?
They've also asked to waive the 3 readings, actually.
Okay, they've requested to waive the 3.
I'll move to waive the 3 readings on this one.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Comments or discussion on the waiving of the 3? Okay,
Vidlac.
yes,
Stricker.
Yes.
McCarrigan.
Yes.
Solomon.
Yes.
okay. So now we need a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
Have a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, a motion and a second from Jeannie.
Solomon.
Yes.
McCarrigan.
Yes.
Stricker.
Yes.
Vidlac.
Yes. Okay. Petitions, communications, public input. Council to receive a presentation from Marvin Planning Consultants on the comprehensive plan.
Mayor and Council, here's Keith Marvin with Marvin Planning Consultants.
Thank you.
I will try to keep this brief. We have been working diligently on the comp plan, and we've been working to meet with staff about every other week via Zoom. And we've had some hiccups where all of us have had schedule conflicts, but for the most part, we've been meeting every other week to update and get questions answered. With me tonight is Spencer Lemon from our office and Jesse Poor from FHU. Jesse's been a great resource. He grew up here, went to high school here, so, my goal is just to kind of give you an update and not go through the whole thing. Couple of things to hit on is we've closed the survey. We had a total of 316 total surveys answered, which I felt I would like to see more, but that's a pretty good number compared to what we've seen in other communities. A little bit bigger than you and smaller than you. So the key thing that we probably did better than most projects we work on is under community engagement is we had 25 different focus group meetings, counting 4 today. So these represented all kinds of different groups across the community. So we got a lot of very good input and insight into the different dynamics of the city of Scotts Bluff. Right now we have all but 3 chapters started. Well, one of them has been started, but the chapters are community engagement, which we just closed the survey on, which will impact that chapter. And we just finished up our last focus group meetings this afternoon. Tomorrow we're working most of the day with staff to go through and start developing your future land use plan and the criteria that are going to go through and get put into this new plan to direct the next 10 to 20 years for your community. Annexation is the other one, and that's one of the things that Mr. Spencer and I have had some conversation on, and we'll continue to do that. You're required to identify potential areas for annexation by state statute. So we are going to identify those and make that done. Jesse will be working with us tomorrow for a good part of the day, because what we do on the land use side directly will impact his involvement in transportation and how we deal with several different things. Other than those 3 chapters, we got some final touches that need to be put onto the rest of the chapters. My hope is we're shooting for somewhere in August, plus or minus maybe early September after Labor Day, to start having public open houses to present the need of this document to the public. My goal is to get this to the full planning commission and you folks sometime by the end of June, early July. And then get that draft up on once staff gives me the go-ahead, we'll put up on the project website so the public can then access it and start reviewing it themselves and giving feedback. So ultimately, if we can meet this, we would be doing the public hearing sometime September, October. Any questions?
How many surveys did you say were done?
316. I mean, it's about 2%.
2%.
Okay.
So,
What were some of the main areas you were looking at with the survey?
we looked at all different topics: recreation, economic development, transportation. We asked it was about, I want to say it was a 20-some page survey.
Oh.
And we had, I could tell you I can access Survey Monkey right here.
I think there's 84 pages of survey information.
Yeah, of actual input, 84 pages of actual input.
Do you think the length of the survey was a barrier?
You know, I don't know. I'm not real familiar with surveys. That's a lot bigger survey than I'm used to.
I mean, I did it, it was long.
Yeah, I did.
I will tell you that out of the 316, we had 246 people that answered all the way from the start to the finished.
Yeah.
So we had about a 70 to 80%. That's about what we see.
What do you think, how long do you think it took to complete that, start to finish? It was just
10 to 15 minutes.
It wasn't overwhelming, the time that was required.
Yeah, you had a 78% completion rate, which means 78% of those participants answered every question. And some of those at the end, we put at the end on purpose because they're the demographic questions of who they are, what age group are they falling into, et cetera. So we want to get the front end questions more about the community, and the demographic data is just gravy if we can get some of that information.
How many chapters are there?
There's going to be about 14 or 15 total chapters. I couldn't tell you for sure how many there are, but everything like population, housing, economic development all have their own individual chapters. What you will see on that document, and the reason we do that is, instead of having one big chapter at the end that has all your goals and policies and visioning, we put them in each individual chapter. So if there's something Sharia wants for economic development, she could go to that chapter and grab it and have those policies and everything right there, instead of having to go find them in 2 or 3 different places. So housing will have its own set of goals. Public safety, public works, public facilities, Parks and Rec will have their own set of goals and policies that we'll set up.
And Keith, that gives us the ability to take those chapters and change them and not have to go through the rest of the document and make those changes.
Yes.
And so it's a pretty flexible, livable document.
And one of the chapters we do include now, we've just started including it in the last couple of years, is we do have a hazards chapter. And all we do really is we go to your hazard mitigation plan that you typically have done through your NRD, and we'll just swipe the information about Scotts Bluff out of there completely and just regurgitate it so that it's part of the plan. And so what happens is if those get updated every 5 years, staff will need to go in and update that chapter individually to make it sure that it's in line with everything else.
Keith, would you say that you're still researching and gathering data?
Oh, we do right up until we get to the point where we are at the end of it, and right up until the open houses with the public, we're going to take public comment, and we may change things in the document right up to that point.
So if someone neglected to complete the survey for some reason, how would they provide input at this point? What would be the best way to do that?
The best way would be is we'll put it up on the Powertic website, which are it's on all the postcards that went out. And then they could do that, or come to the open house, and we'll have a method for them to provide us with input on the different information.
Okay.
We have a link to that on our website as well.
Yeah.
So
Social media?
I'd have to check.
Yeah.
I can put it on there. I'm looking
That would
at
be
you,
great.
I don't know why, but,
It would be great.
So.
okay.
So, I mean, I've been pleased with the input we've gotten from the community. We've taken our time with some of it, but we've gotten good input. We've tried, Kevin and I have both put out different press releases in the paper trying to push this a little further, but it just kind of died.
Okay.
And we were supposed to get some input. We'll see what they came up with. We also had another technique that we were using on Saturday with the Cinco de Mayo events. So there, is it Mauricia?
Mauricia.
Mauricia had some questions that we put together, and she was going to have her people ask those questions of people that were attending that event.
Great.
So we did do that one outreach. I haven't seen the outcomes of that yet. Anything, Jesse, you want to add?
Jesse Poor, Felsberg, Holden, Illig, live in Lincoln, graduated here in '96. My perspective of Scotts Bluff was always by foot or by bike. So doing the transportation element of the plan has been kind of fun. But one of the things I just wanted to reinforce is what Keith said. The land use and transportation interact pretty darn tight. And as we think about transportation going forward, key corridors, and it was brought up initially by one of the public commenters about 26 or East Overland or whatever corridors, think about the land use along those would be very important. And they will be separate chapters, but you'll see they'll be very tied together. So it's been good to listen to people's concerns and ideas, and looking forward to bringing those forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, colleagues?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, where are we at here? Okay, council to remove from the table approving 10 special designated liquor licenses for PRES Incorporated DBA Rositas to serve distilled spirits at the Bands on Broadway Summer Series at the 18th Street Plaza. So do we need a motion and a second to remove it from the table?
Make a motion to remove the 10 liquor licenses from the table.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Vidlac.
Yes.
Solomon.
Yes.
McCarrigan.
Yes.
Okay, council to discuss and consider action on 10 special designated liquor licenses for Prez Incorporated DBA Rositas to serve distilled spirits at the Bands on Broadway Summer Series, June 5th, 12th, 19th, 26th, July 3rd, 10th, 17th, 24th, 31st, and August 7th from 5:30 to 9:30 at the 18th Street Plaza.
Thank you. I kind of forgot what I was here for.
I know, I'm like, you've been here for a minute.
No.
Should have been here last time.
Oh, no. Well, it's like every year, we'll serve margaritas. We will check IDs, and then we'll use wristbands. Any questions?
You've done this for, quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, since it first started.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Have we ever had any concerns with?
No, we've never had anything
yeah.
happen. There's been some concerns, but they've all been addressed.
Okay.
Handled appropriately, so.
Okay.
So far, so good.
Do y'all have any questions about that?
I think it's pretty standard
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay, if there's no questions, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
McCarrigan.
Yes.
Vidlac.
Yes.
Solomon.
Yes.
Stricker.
Yes.
Okay, Mayor to read the proclamation naming May 11th through May 17th, 2025 as Police Week and May 15th, 2025 as Police Officers Memorial Day in the city of Scottsbluff. Okay, Police Week proclamation. Whereas today the word freedom is as important to our history as it was in 1776, and the unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as guaranteed by the Constitution to every American citizen is being challenged on many fronts. And whereas May 15th of each year is designated by law as National Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which it occurs as National Police Week, and whereas understanding is the watchword to compatibility, and it is important that the people of our city know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police department. Now therefore, I, Betsy Vidlac, as Mayor of the City of Scottsbluff, do hereby proclaim Sunday, May 11th through Saturday, May 17th, 2025 as Police Week, and May 15th, 2025 as Police Officers Memorial Day in the City of Scottsbluff, and urge all citizens to take advantage of this opportunity to honor the police officers of our community and to provide a wider base of understanding of their daily work. Have anything you would like to add to that?
Thanks for doing that. There will be a ceremony on the 15th at 11 o'clock at the police department. Everybody's invited.
Thank you. Okay, bids and awards. Council to discuss and consider action on awarding the bid for one new half-ton crew cab 4x4 pickup truck for the Public Works Department to Transwest Ford LLC in the amount of $44,330.84.
Good evening, council, mayor. We got two bids for a crew cab truck, one for $44,330 and one for $49,000. The lower one was from Transwest Ford, and we ask that you approve that.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any comments, questions on that? Okay.
Vidlac.
Yes.
Stricker.
Yes.
McCarrigan.
Yes.
Solomon.
Yes.
Okay. Council to discuss and consider action on awarding the bid for the Public Works hail damage repair to Shank Roofing in the amount of $158,679.88.
Okay, we got three bids for this project, and it's the last hail package besides the lights on the pathway bridge. So this should take care of the rest of the hail damage. We had Twin City Roofing, Shank Roofing, and Shank Roofing is the lowest. I'm sorry, two bids.
And this will be steel roofing again.
Yes, steel roofing. There's a couple at the wastewater and the rest are at the street department.
Just roofing, any other things?
I think there's some siding items and stuff on there too, but mainly roofing.
It seems like the engineer's estimate and the Shank bid are quite a ways off, unlike the pickleball thing, which is a totally different situation, but, are we missing anything?
I don't think we're missing anything. I think the pickleball court was unusual because it was kind of a smaller project. but it's expensive for them to mobilize and come and
That's
do a
one that
small
went
project
over.
like this. I think this is right in line with everything, and these bids are, once received, are reviewed by the engineers.
Okay.
And to make sure that everything's where they should be and it's what it's supposed to be.
And again, remind me, what was the engineer estimate on this one?
211, 736.
Oh, then we're doing great.
That's why I asked,
Yeah.
it just seemed like, did we have enough eyes to not miss something?
Okay, then we're doing good.
I'm good with the lower.
Yep.
I think they base theirs off
process
the
is working.
insurance estimate. The engineer is part of that.
Okay, thank you.
A motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Any other comments or questions? Okay,
Solomon?
Yes.
McCarrigan?
Yes.
Stricker?
Yes.
Vidlac?
yes. Reports from staff, boards, and commissions. Council to receive the 2024 Annual Police Department Report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kind of thought my time would never come.
Yeah.
So I have here our 2024 annual report. These photos were from the Shop with a Cop event that we had. I'll touch more on that later. That's everyone's favorite officer, Sweet Baby Duke. And he's, muzzled to not look scary, but just for everyone's safety, just in case. So our vision and our mission statement haven't changed at all. I will say that we have taken some steps to try to rebuild some trust within the community. It's no secret that we've had some personnel matters that disrupted that. And so we have done a lot. One, just in-house to prevent certain things from being repeated ever again. And we've also done some additional community engagement, which we'll kind of get to later, just to try to rebuild some relationships and then some of that. I think you can go probably to page 5. Our agent experience has gone down a little bit. The average age of sworn personnel dropped by about a year. And then the experience between patrol and detectives went down about 4.7. So, I mean, we have 10 officers that have less than 2 years of experience. So that was expected, I guess, to happen. But we can look at it in a negative way, or it can be a really positive thing. I think it's really good just for our future. You can keep moving along, Taylor. Let's see, the organizational chart, there have been some changes within the school resource officers from the year before until this year. We did have Officer Modak was split half of the year in the schools for 24, and then Officer Johnson took over. Most of patrol stayed pretty much the same. We had some new additions. There was a change in compliance and animal control, and records as well.
Questions at the end, or?
Whenever you want, Jerry.
Well, so the organizational chart has Chief Spencer and then you as operations. Is there a plan for somebody to take your place?
Yeah, we actually have testing set for the end of May. So hopefully that promotion will happen in June, and then I can do less things. Revenues didn't change by a whole lot. Our grants went down by a little bit, and I'm not sure why. That's going to be different in the future, though, because now we get a STEP grant, which is really pretty cool. So before, it would be each individual grant, which could be, once a quarter, it could be every other month. You have to go through the entire application process for each individual activity, and now you essentially get one budget for the year, and then there are certain events that you have to participate in. The rest of it is discretionary. So the way Sergeant Eckerberg has been in charge of that, and the way he's done it now, is pretty much every single month he finds something different to focus the efforts on. And that's worked out really well. It's also allowed us to just kind of expand, because it's not just for traffic. The majority of it does go to traffic enforcement, which is very important. But it also allows us to do more community-oriented events and then pay that overtime with the grant funding, which I think has just kind of opened the doors for more opportunity. You know, we have a lot of, like the schools or daycares that'll call and ask us to go up there for a couple of hours and talk to the kids and show them the cars and do kind of fun things, where before it was more limited to someone on duty having to run up there and do it, you know, quickly. Now we're able to kind of make more of an event of it. We're planning something with the library for June, which I think will be really cool too, and I think that we're going to utilize some of those fundings to absorb that overtime.
One more question on this one.
Sure.
Is you might not, I don't know how long the contract's been with Terrytown. Is that that amount still current, you think?
A just increase a year?
Yeah, it just increased. It's designed to go up every 5 years by CIP, so.
Okay. So it's a renewable thing?
Every-
Get a notice for probably a year? Or?
Every 5 years, it just increases.
No, but I'm saying if the contract, if the city wasn't interested anymore, Terrytown wasn't,
there's a way out.
A year-long notice or something?
I don't know if it's that.
But there's a process.
But it's a reasonable process to get out of it, yeah.
And we've handled Terrytown for a long time, haven't we?
90s, late 90s,
90s, okay.
maybe, yeah, at least late 90s. And they're, you know, in my opinion, they're getting a pretty good deal. That's a pretty good rate for law enforcement.
Any idea the percentage of overall calls that are
Well,
in Terrytown?
I'll tell you, I just pulled the data for the April meeting that I attended with them, so that would have been like mid-April. So I pulled just year to date at that point, and there were over 200 calls for service in Terrytown alone, plus traffic enforcement. So I think that if you really broke it down, it's worth more than that, just by hourly rate and time spent there, I would say.
That's kind of why I was asking.
The operations division was overseen by Captain Kite. There was a little bit of change there in duties when I got promoted to captain. So Kite took over the K-9 program, or excuse me, he already had the K-9 program. He took over SWAT and EOD. So those were pretty much the only changes for him. The structure of patrol didn't change at all. Again, if anything, we just added personnel and started filling in some of those open slots. I will say that training, there's been a pretty incredible effort to get people to additional training. There were times, I would say 2 years ago, where staffing was just low enough that it was harder, I think, to get people to go anywhere. And so that's picked back up, and I think that that's just beneficial to the department and the community. So this is the STEP grant that I was talking about, and so I looked at the last couple of years, and so the range in reimbursement we had was between like 40 and 75,000, and so this is 120,000, which just gives us a tremendous amount of opportunity to do additional functions. And again, everyone's favorite Duke and Tyler Weber. I know I said this last year, so I probably sound like a broken record, but I think that Tyler is an incredible K-9 handler, and I think that Duke's probably the best dog that I've ever worked with. Might be a little biased, but no, they're pretty great. Their statistics didn't change by much. They had the same amount of narcotic deployments they had. I think the previous year it was 3 patrol deployments, and it had gone up to 10. Tracking stayed the same, evidence recovery stayed the same, and I know that they certainly exceeded their 16 hours of training a month.
What would patrol deployments consist of?
So sometimes it's, I don't know, I would think I think what the last one would have been that technically counted as that.
Just generally.
I don't know, let's say that someone is out on a call, maybe we have a perimeter set and we're trying to tighten that down a little bit more. A lot of times it's kind of a tag team effort between Weber and then like the sheriff's office or Gearing might assist, where they'd have multiple dogs at one time. Those would be classified as patrol deployments, where essentially they're called to assist patrol in a capacity that's outside of just strictly narcotics.
Okay.
Our internship program, so we had Ella Johnson last year. She spent time with records, the detectives, patrol. Everyone's favorite is always patrol. They do the records first, then they move to detectives, and then they finish with patrol generally, and I feel like that's always the most exciting part, because they get to go out and see all of the things. I know that Ella had come in and spent some additional time, like on the weekends and at night, that was outside of her requirements, but just so that she could spend more time in that capacity learning things. So I think that was really good. And then support services. So last year that was me. We had a lot of things going on when I initially got promoted. We were out of compliance in some of our federal reporting. Our state reporting was pretty good. A big problem with the federal reporting was the software compatibility between our report management system and how it was transferring data to the state and then to the federal government. And so, I mean, that was a lot of work to get that situated, and we're back on track now. I think we had that resolved probably, it was, I don't know, mid-year last year, and we've had no problems this year, so that's been great. We did get e-citations fully implemented in April of '24. There were some learning curves there, but for the most part, I think it's just become kind of second nature. With that, we were able to apply for a grant to replace the tablets in the cars, upgrade them to laptops. Most of the tablets were at the end of their life anyway, so that would have been like a CIP item. But we found this grant funding that paid like 75% of the project. They had a big focus on western Nebraska. Scottsbluff County had a really low compliance rate with e-citations. We were one of the only departments that was actually in compliance. But it kind of worked to our benefit when they were trying to get other people on board, because we were able to utilize that funding to do that upgrade and streamline our reporting in that way. So that was a positive thing.
And Chief Brass, actually the area was out of compliance in our federal reporting. And Chief Brass took that on and really got everybody back in compliance, and quicker than I thought she could do it.
Like other towns?
The entire state, actually, anyone who used the same system that we used. Yeah. Essentially, I don't want to bore you, but
it was a big deal.
She's minimizing her work.
But they did use our model to get other states back in compliance too, so that was pretty cool. LPRs, we added 2 new ones you can see on the map. One of them is portable, which has worked out pretty well. We kind of just got ourselves on a schedule of how often to swap out the battery. It does definitely require some attention, where the stationary ones do not. Flock services those. If they find anything just odd with plate reads, or if an angle seems off, they send their team out and they adjust it. That's built into our contract, so it's no additional fee to us. We have had a couple that have just had some weird things about them. They came out and fixed, and they're working great. The portable one it's been really neat to, one, I think, identify future locations for permanent devices, but then also just when we have maybe a string of burglaries or illegal dumping or whatever it may be, then we can move it around. And I think that's been really convenient. So right now we're using it to assist code compliance, and so far so good.
And we've solved crimes with.
Oh, absolutely, and we solve crimes for other people as well. We had to implement a process of how other agencies would request our assistance, and it's really not complicated for them to request it, but for us, it's just a matter of keeping people accountable and make sure that we can audit. So you're not just searching for anything. You have to have a reason that's very specific. And we audit that probably once a week to make sure that everyone is in compliance. The other agencies, initially, there's, I guess, some confusion and maybe hesitation. We shared our policy and procedure with them on it, and that's worked out really well now. But Gearing had a significant amount of thefts, like commercial thefts, where they had trailers just full of construction equipment and materials, and we were able to solve 3 of them just by using our LPRs. And then with the addition of those last 2, we were able to join the national coverage. So before that, if you didn't kind of step up to that next tier, then you could only basically use your own. But you know, the whole purpose is to kind of be connected to the inner workings of the web, right? So when we made that leap, I think that's been huge. We've had people from here that we've made like hot lists for, and they've ended up in other states, other jurisdictions have located them just because of Flock. So it's been a great tool.
I had one question I think I've asked Kevin too, but is it possible to upgrade these so that if there's a wreck, it'll actually, we can pull the footage off of the wreck?
No, so because it doesn't actually like constantly record. It's programmed just to capture like plate data, and it's specifically made in a way that it's not capturing like people in the vehicles. They're really big into privacy, which I think is a good thing. But I mean, you would, I guess, in order to capture some kind of collision, you would basically have to have like a perfect read at that time, and you're not going to be able to see who did what. You're just maybe would see like the impact essentially.
I just didn't know because of the amount of wrecks on Highway 26, if we couldn't put cameras at the worst intersections, solely just for the purpose of wreck reconstruction.
Yeah.
I think there are other avenues of like just different camera systems that we could use for that. It would be
That aren't these.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not the purpose of these
Okay.
cameras, but we would have to get state to agree with that.
No.
Remember, we're gonna be doing the study with our Safe Streets for All grant, and then there will be, through this comp plan, there will be transportation in there too. There'll be a little bit of an overlap there.
I will say we did have some difficulty in trying to place these when they were pulling the permits, where like it had to be a certain distance from Highway 26. I mean, they have some really stringent rules on that.
Yeah, on the state side.
And I know that another agency in Nebraska, they wanted to put some of the LPRs basically along the interstate, and they couldn't permanently affix them, so they had to put them on like portable trailers or something like that to be in compliance with those regulations. So that might be just something to note for later.
Okay.
Back to our SROs. So we have a great relationship with both Scottsville Public Schools and WNCC. Part of the STEP grant, Officer Kuhlman has done a ton of stuff. She's the car seat lady, and she's the job fair lady, and she's been able to participate in a lot more things in her off time because of that available funding. And so Modek was still in the school. He was at the middle school for January through May of '24, and then Caleb started in the fall. And everybody loved Mike, and everybody loves Caleb too. Ron is great. I really can't say enough good things about all of them. We have a pretty solid group working in the schools, and I think
Did Mike
that's
retire?
important. He did not retire. He just came back to patrol.
Okay.
So this is our call for service comparison. It's pretty in line with normal. I know we saw kind of a decline around COVID. We talked about that last year, that part of it was just the way that we, one, handled calls. I think the things that people just didn't report during that time, we started to see an increase again, and then there was a decent jump from 22 to 23, and then a slight jump to 24. For the comparison to neighboring agencies, theirs are pretty in line with what their normal is as well, so that's not changed a whole lot. Total arrests, so a couple things that I thought were kind of interesting. The arson arrests, we had 1 the previous year and then 5 for '24. The aggravated assaults actually decreased by 14, and then the assault on an officer increased by 14.
Do you attribute that to narcotics and the people you have to deal with?
Yeah, I would say that probably most of those people were under the influence of something. And the warrant arrests stayed pretty close to our normal.
Terminology, warrant arresting agency jurisdiction, that's Scottsbluff.
Scottsbluff County, yeah.
County.
Yeah. So then reports, I also thought this was interesting, the average written report the previous year was 170 per officer, and that went down to 136. And I think that's just because staffing increased. And so it's kind of spread the wealth a little bit, which I think has been good, definitely a little bit of relief in that, but that's why that number went down, just because there were more officers to help take those calls and write those reports. So this one changed a little bit at that bottom number, the grams and dosage of other drugs. Part of our reporting changed a bit, where in particular you have fentanyl, where now it's entered as suspected fentanyl. There's been a change in the testing. You can't do like a roadside test. It is sent to the lab, and it's been that way so for a couple of years. So they changed, I guess, how it's classified within our system. So instead of saying that, it is fentanyl, you say it's suspected fentanyl. So that just changes kind of how you pull these numbers. I think that's just why there's a difference in what we actually knew was fentanyl, and then that all other drugs number at the bottom. The methamphetamine was down by a little bit. Cocaine was up by a little bit. Marijuana was pretty in line. Let's see. These numbers didn't change a whole lot. Our role in wing changed a little bit. Our full-time investigator came out last April, and actually today, Zach Rada promoted to detective officially, and so he's gonna start splitting his time between criminal and narcotics. The DUIs were down a little bit. MIP went down a little bit. Open container stayed about the same. I thought the most notable part of this is in 2023, there were 15 failures for compliance checks. And then in 24, there were only 3. And so I think that that's a testament to a couple of things. One, just the people who have the liquor licenses, I think, are doing a really good job in their policies and how they're handling the personnel matters related. I think that there have been better training opportunities for people who are serving alcohol. And I think that we've just done more compliance checks in general. Maybe people are just more accustomed to how it's been, but I thought that was pretty significant to go from 15 failures to 3. I think that just shows that people are doing a pretty good job with running their businesses and maintaining their licenses. Code enforcement, so we had code compliance for the majority of the year, and then it went back to City Hall. Animal complaints were pretty in line. The bites were up a little bit. Leash law stuff was up a little bit. And I don't think that we had any animal cruelty the year before, and then we had 3 for 24. I think those numbers are kind of, I don't know, a little low, but part of that is we didn't have full-time positions filled for that. So I think that once we get that filled, we're going to see an increase in that enforcement. Tabitha is incredible. So she works for the Doves program, and we're fortunate enough before chief manager left us. He put this in place, so Tabitha works out of our office. She still works for Doves, but she works at Scottsbluff PD. Her salary is funded by grants, but it's been such an incredible resource. I felt like we had good policies before in just how we referred victims to Doves, but it's made a huge difference to have her in-house. So for her numbers, she assisted 193 victims. 1,518 total services were provided. And then the unsolicited phone calls, so that's something that technically didn't meet the criteria for what an officer would have to report or refer, but it was just a mention of, hey, Tabitha, you might want to check on this person. And so I thought that was a pretty big number. For one, she wasn't there the entire year. I think she started in March. And then just two, that, that's from officers feeling comfortable enough to just tell her, I have this feeling about a person, I think you should check up on him. So I think that just speaks volumes to having that access to her and implementing these resources.
Can you refresh me on the acronym DOVES?
So it's domestic violence advocacy, essentially. And she has helped us, I will say, with things outside of domestic violence. That was part of her working at the PD as well. She's done a lot of just like victim assistance for like sexual assaults and homicides. She's always involved in communicating with the family on those, and I think that's been really helpful. It's not always easy, for a detective to step away, especially when they're like mid-investigation and something like that, but to have her to be able to keep in contact with the family, I think has just provided another element of support. Non-injury accidents dropped by 97, and I think that part of that is just like additional traffic enforcement. I think that it really made a difference just having officers visible and out there. I do think that it helped significantly. Our fatality numbers stayed the same. Most everything else stayed the same. Really, the notable portion was the drop in non-injury accidents. And that you can just see the progression that we've had. So the crime summary, again, we have the arson where there ended up being the 5 arrests, but just 8 arsons. It's kind of out of line with like what a normal year looks like. Burglaries were down by 11, forgeries down by 16, and thefts down by about 200. So those were, the thefts in particular was a pretty big jump. Trespassing was up though. I can't really explain that. That one increased by 150. I don't know if that was more people just reporting trespassers, because generally that's not a big self-initiated number. That's, someone called it in. And then vandalism calls also decreased by 26. Assaults did increase, aggravated assaults increased a little bit. Simple assaults went up by 27, and then disorderly conduct was down by 18, and sex offenses were down by 13. Ask a Cop, so Sergeant Eckerberg continued his efforts in that, and then the department participated in National Night Out, Coffee with the Cop, Shop with the Cop, Pink Patch Project. This year we've had some other agencies reach out to us to try to start their own Shop with a Cop programs. One of those is Ogallala PD, and so I think that that's kind of cool. Their whole draw was that they saw our pictures on Facebook. And so that was enough for them to want to start their own program, which I think is great. Then we have milestone anniversaries. So Joe Rohr hit 30 years, Captain Kite hit 25, and Officer Coleman hit 15. Just think it's important to point that out. I don't know how delighted they would be to know they're on this slide. But. Then for our department awards, we had Spencer Grease got the Chief of Police Award. His commitment to duty, hard work, dedication to the community, trust with citizens, calm demeanor, I think is just describes him to a T. I don't know how many of you have met him. He's a very positive person, and he definitely goes above and beyond anything you ask him to do. And Sergeant Eckerberg was the Officer of the Year, which is cool because he was nominated by the other sergeants. And so for them to kind of pick another sergeant is a bit unheard of, but I think he's more than deserving. He does a ton of things, probably too many things. But I think the STEP grant's gonna help him not have to do so many individual traffic writing grants, but he's still in charge of all the data and he loves that. The AEDs, e-citations, I mean, he really was the driving force in getting e-citations up and running. Could partially be because he has terrible handwriting and he thought it would be easier to not write citations. Accident reconstruction, he's done a lot in that. He actually, in our current budget, we had a CIP to get some reconstruction equipment, and he's so excited about that right now. He's doing some additional training so that he can start implementing a lot of that. But it's been incredible to have. Before, when we would call for a reconstructionist, you know, it might take someone 4 hours to drive here to help out. And so he's been called out from his house a couple of times, but it's a lot easier to wait for him for, 20 minutes than it is for 4 hours. He does all the compliance checks. He calibrates all the PBTs. He still does Ask a Cop. He's our anti-bias instructor, and he's in charge of the color guard. And then that's last year's law enforcement memorial ceremony. It'll be the same day this year, May 15th at 11 a.m., Public Safety Building.
Thank you. Any questions for Chief Brett?
No, thank you for putting it together.
Thank you for all your work.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Council to discuss and consider action on the master short form owner-engineer agreement for the landfill between the City of Gearing, City of Scottsbluff, and HDR Engineering Incorporated, and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Mayor and council, we did have somebody zooming in. Are they still there?
They're still here.
All right, well, let me set the stage a little bit. In August of last year, we sent out requests, RFQs. We need somebody to represent us in Sioux County in front of the Planning Commission and eventually the commissioners for a conditional use permit to site the landfill. We need to get into a hurry. We have a 5-year purchase agreement on ground in Sioux County, and the 5 years ends in January of 26. Another date to pay attention to is the Gearing landfill is projected to go closed May of 27. So we don't have a lot of time if this is going to work to do this. So we sent out the RFQs, HDR. I think we received 4 responses, and HDR was the firm that was selected by the group that's working on this. And we've been kind of in negotiations with them about what we want, but right now our immediate needs are to represent us for the conditional use permit, and then to project those tipping fees, the cost that it's going to cost us to site that landfill, and eventually the cost to our customers for the sanitation fees. That's a big concern for us. So they've agreed to do that work. They're going to do it in a 6-month time approximately. There's also a little bit of money in there for some education, but if they're there, I'll let them tell you all about it.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
Perfect. Hi, I'm Katie Kinley. I work with HDR. I'm a professional engineer and I work on landfill design and permitting. So this project is really taking this proposed new site through that CUP process, and also at the same time taking it through a detailed financial model to really kind of dial in those tipping fees and confirm that it's really the most as cost effective and environmentally protective solution going forward for waste disposal. So yeah, that is kind of gave a pretty good overview of the project already, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
And then you'll represent us until the completion of all this with the landfill?
Yes, yes. This CUP process goes through Sioux County first before it can go to ultimately through the state permitting process. Really a lot of the same parameters, but yeah, this is kind of the first step of that permit.
Okay.
And the funds for this, Kevin, we have to use for this. We have
We
set
do.
aside for this, we have to use it for this purpose
Yes.
generally,
We,
right?
we have we're getting close to $3 million in that fund, so it's already sitting there. It's money that's available to us right now.
How much?
Just about 3 million.
And as part of this whole process, when are we gonna break ground on the transfer station?
We aren't too far from that, but that has nothing to do with.
Nothing to do with
Yeah.
this?
Nothing
Okay.
at all.
Okay.
This isn't basically analysis of some of the processes and things that
Yes.
we've been looking at and need to kind of close up before we move forward.
Yeah, this is specifically for the landfill. As far as the transfer station and
Just
our
the site.
collections, that's gonna be totally separate
Okay.
from the landfill.
So if the 5 years is up in January of '26, a mere 7 months away, what is the time frame for seeking Sioux County approval so that we know if it's even proper to purchase the land?
We would, and correct me if I'm wrong, Katie, but we'd like to get through that in the next 6 months.
That is correct.
Before the expiration of the. Right.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Sorry about the wait.
Nope, yeah, thanks everyone.
Do I have a motion to approve
So
the agreement?
moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other comments or questions?
Vidlac.
Yes.
Stricker.
Yes.
McCarrigan.
Yes.
Solomon.
Yes.
We wore you guys out.
We're tired, so I hope no one has any council reports. This item is intended for council members to update and inform other council members of meetings attended since the last city council meeting.
Mine's fast.
Okay.
Oh, no.
God.
Yeah, it's fast. I won't even bring it up, but the zoo's been waiting 75 years, so. Next Saturday, they're inviting everybody out to the zoo. It'll be the 75th celebration. And 9:30 to 4 is free. If you guys want to bring grandkids or just go out the family. They'll have food trucks, there'll be band and music, and they'll stay open till 9 o'clock at night that day. There you go.
Anyone else have anything to add? I'll just quickly add that I did attend the Cinco de Mayo events, and it was an honor to be able to present the key to the city to Oscar and Stephanie Gonzalez, and so that was a very cool thing, and you can read a little bit about them online and with some of the festivities, so.
Did you do some kind of an interview?
Yes, yes, sure, it was wonderful.
I don't know where to find it.
Yes, it was, yeah, I can't remember the name of the gal, but. Okay.
She did wonderful. I heard great things from a certain person. so.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Solomon.
Yes.
McCarrigan.
Yes.
Stricker.
Yes.
Vidlac.
Yes.